Ever since President Trump nominated Elise Stefanik to be ambassador to the United Nations back in November, there's been a scramble to replace her. People are declaring themselves candidates to run in a special election. One even hosted a mixed martial arts cage match in Glens Falls to promote his candidacy. But here's the thing. We don't get to vote for who's going to be in this special election. There's no primary. We explain why and what's happening or not happening in the race to replace Stefanik on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, dedicated to providing patient care and regional services to the people of St. Lawrence County. claxtonhepburn.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Thursday, January 30th. First up, one of the state prisons in Malone is locked down after two recent incidents left 25 staff members hospitalized. Emily Russell reports.
The first incident was last Wednesday. Officers responded to an altercation between two inmates at Upstate Correctional in Malone. After that, officers and nurses who responded started to feel sick. Some vomited and fainted. Narcan, a drug used to reverse opioid overdoses, was used on two nurses. In all, 20 staff members were hospitalized. State and county hazmat teams responded to the incident but couldn't determine the source of the symptoms. Days later, on Saturday night, an inmate at the same prison became unresponsive in the infirmary. 3 officers and 2 nurses who responded became dizzy and lightheaded. Narcan was used on 1 officer and 1 nurse. All 5 were hospitalized. Again, the hazmat team that responded couldn't determine what caused the incident. The state's prison commissioner announced yesterday that the facility was under a lockdown and that drug-sniffing dogs would be brought in to search the entire prison. The lockdown at Upstate Correctional in Malone is expected to last for several days, during which time all visitations to the prison will be suspended. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
Saranac Lake's Winter Carnival kicks off tomorrow with the coronation of the Royal Court and tons of events this weekend, including the popular Ladies Fry Pan Toss on Saturday. And Saturday night at 7 is the official lighting of the Ice Palace and the opening fireworks. This year, a team of locals has been crafting a plan to make the Ice Palace accessible to anyone. David Escobar reports.
The Ice Palace will kick off its Accessibility Day on Tuesday, February 4th for people with disabilities and chronic health conditions. The Ice Palace team worked with Nick Friedman, founder of Accessible Adirondack Tourism, to make the palace more inclusive.
This is an opportunity, really, to embrace everyone, and I think Carnival is such a part of the character of Saranac Lake. People with disabilities are part of this community, and now we're seeing an elevated effort all the way around, and that's really heartwarming.
Some features like wider hallways, high traction floors, and handrails were already part of the design. Now extra staff will be on site to assist visitors with any form of disability. The event will also offer hot drinks and snacks, and the Lake Flower Boat Launch parking lot will be reserved for vehicles with handicap placards and license plates. People can also take advantage of a free wheelchair-accessible bus to the Ice Palace, with stops at locations like the Saranac Lake Adult Center and the Tri-Lake Center for Independent Living. Director Mary Lamica says snow and ice can keep people with disabilities from going out in the winter. She hopes Accessibility Day will engage people who normally wouldn't venture to the Ice Palace.
Everybody deserves a chance to be a part of something. They live here in our community. They should not be forgotten about.
To reserve a bus ticket or to learn more about the event, visit the Winter Carnival website. David Escobar, North Country Public Radio.
Earlier today, a Senate committee advanced Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's nomination to the full Senate to become the next ambassador to the United Nations. It's a safe bet to say Stefanik will eventually be confirmed. So then she'll resign from Congress, and Governor Kathy Hochul has to call a special election to replace her in about 3 months. There's been a lot of speculation about this special election. Who's running? Who's going to win? Here to lay out what we know and what we don't know is our Champlain Valley reporter, Cara Chapman, who's going to be covering the race. She spoke on our morning news show, Northern Light, with host Amy Feiereisel.
Let's have you lay out why there is no primary for this special election. Why is it that voters won't choose who the candidates are going to be?
So it's because New York state law requires the parties to select the candidates, and specifically, that'll be up to the county party chairs, and they'll decide who gets on the ballot in a weighted vote. That means some counties have more say than others, and that figure is based on, recent voter participation. And NY-21 specifically contains all or part of 15 counties, so that means 15 people per party will be voting on who gets on the ballot. Now, someone can still get on the ballot through the independent nominating petition process. They can, gather signatures and create an independent party line, but they will have a much more condensed time frame because of how soon the election happens. But as for the major party candidates, those will be decided by the county party chairs. So essentially, we've been seeing, more than a dozen people courting these Democratic and GOP chairs to try and gain their support.
Now, here on NCPR and in every other media outlet in the region, we've heard tons of names of people who want to be these candidates in the special election. Can you talk through our approach to that and why we're not profiling any of them at this point?
Yeah. So we have been mentioning on air when people with, strong North Country ties announce that they're interested in the seat. For example, State Senator Dan Steck of Queensbury wants the Republican nomination, and St. Lawrence County farmer Blake Gendabine wants to be the Democrats' pick. But the reason we haven't done, in-depth stories on them or really focused on the horse race just yet is because the voters, our listeners, you're not the ones selecting these candidates. If there was going to be a primary, we'd be tracking down every candidate, sitting them down, getting an idea of, who they are and what policies they support. If we did that for the special election, our listeners would be hearing from all kinds of people they won't be getting to vote for anyways. It's the county party chairs who have the ultimate say in that. But what we have done is we brought you stories, like this one, letting you know about what a special election may look like, what's at stake for the North Country, depending on which candidates are selected and when. Because on that long list are people who do have strong ties to the North Country and people who don't. And I actually recently did a story about whether that matters, that our next congressperson is from the North Country. You can check that out at ncpr.org.
So this district has traditionally been seen as a North Country district, but it's really expanded beyond that in recent years, further south into the Capital and Mohawk Valley regions. How did that happen?
In a word, redistricting. So with the last census, New York State lost a congressional seat, so each congressional district had to get bigger population-wise. And for us in NY-21, that meant picking up territory further south. Now, because of some lawsuits, the district lines have changed a couple times over the last couple years, but as of right now, we've picked up all of Schoharie County and parts of Montgomery and Oneida counties, including the city of Rome. So now this district has to represent those places' interests too. So we're seeing candidates from around those regions for this special election. Think people like Rensselaer County Executive Steve McLaughlin, Schoharie County Assemblyman Chris Tague, and Sticker Mule CEO Anthony Constantino, whose business is based in Amsterdam. I think it also just makes sense that a wide open seat just draws a lot more interest than one where you have a popular, formidable incumbent like Elise Stefanik. And make no mistake, this special election is going to draw huge national attention. Whether right or not, national media are going to turn this into a referendum on President Donald Trump's first months in office. Democrats are hungry to flip a seat and cut into an already thin Republican majority, and the Republicans want to keep the seat and prevent that majority from shrinking.
So now a question I think that's been on everybody's mind. When will we know who the candidates for the special election are? Like, who are they? What are you hearing about these behind-the-scenes talks about the county party chairs?
Yeah, so I'm told that neither party can formally nominate until after the governor calls a special election. And that won't happen until after Stefanik resigns. And we're not sure exactly when that will be. In the meantime, the party chairs are still interviewing people. I'm hearing that Democrats do have some frontrunners emerging. There was a Watertown Daily Times report that said those include Paula Collins, who, as we know, ran against Stefanik last year, and St. Lawrence County farmer Blake Gendabine. As for Republicans, there have been some media reports that people like Schoharie Assemblyman Chris Tague and Liz Joy are the most popular choices. Joy is originally from Glens Falls and ran for Congress in the Capital Region. But I'm also hearing that was based on an unweighted vote that didn't include some of the counties with more say in the process. So for some GOP chairs, I think the field is still pretty wide open for the time being.
That's Cara Chapman, our Champlain Valley reporter who will be covering the special election in the 21st Congressional District to replace Elise Stefanik, whenever that happens. She spoke with Northern Light guest host Amy Feiereisel. And if you're not familiar with Northern Light, it is a great way to start your day with the latest and most interesting North Country news and voices. You can hear it every weekday on the radio or streaming online from 8 to 8:30 in the morning. Or You can listen whenever you want by subscribing to the podcast. Find it in your podcast app of choice or by going to ncpr.org/podcasts. Music today by Evan Veenstra of Gananoque, Ontario, and Gretchen Kohler and Daniel Kelly of Potsdam. I'm David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio.